Where's your president? As you're going about your daily life, where's President Obama? Probably doing something dignified, something that befits the majesty of the office of the most powerful man in the world. Wrong. He was with noted tax cheat, race baiter, and FBI informant Al Sharpton speaking at the National Action Network's annual meeting. The president was.
And he was talking about voter fraud. He was saying this whole idea, that the story that we reported here last weekend on the show out of North Carolina specifically, that number of votes have been double counted. Here we go. 35,000 votes have been double counted. 81 deceased folks managed to vote. So 81 dead people managed to vote using same names, Social Security numbers as other voters. He says this whole idea of voter fraud is totally bogus. Listen to the president.
Across the country, Republicans have led efforts to pass laws making it harder, not easier, for people to vote. In some places, women could be turned away from the polls just because they're registered under their maiden name, but their driver's license has their married name. Senior citizens who've been voting for decades may suddenly be told they can no longer vote until they can come up with the right ID. So let's be clear. The real voter fraud is people who try to deny our rights by making bogus arguments about voter fraud.
So if you think that we ought to stop voter fraud, you somehow hate African-American voters, women, and old people, who, by the way, are three key Democratic constituencies. Kind of funny how that works. But you're a bigot, bottom line.
Yeah, the president's saying also that Republicans are trying to stay relevant and competitive, and that's why they're bringing up these voter fraud issues when it seems like the real fraud is the war on women, period, that the president and the Democratic Party continuously seem to mention. We had Governor Mike Huckabee on the show earlier, and he said if you can't get the dead vote, you can't get elected in some states, and that voter fraud is not bogus. Listen.
It's just still incredible to people to somehow think it's wrong to require the same level of identification. That's really an idea to protect true voters. Because if you vote fraudulently, you've canceled my legitimate vote. That's what it comes down to. So voter fraud is to make elections fair. I don't want to make it hard for people to vote. I don't want to make it where people have to spend money to vote. But I want to make it where every vote is a legitimate vote, and that is not altogether happening. And if he says it isn't, then again, he's coming from a different planet.
I mean, well, you know, it's an election year when you have the race card being thrown around. And that's what Nancy Pelosi did the other day to talk about immigration reform, basically saying that Republicans, because they haven't brought up immigration reform, they're racist. Take a listen.
I think race has something to do with the fact that they're not bringing up an immigration bill. I've heard them say to the Irish, for just you, this would be easy.
She doesn't think that. That's so stupid. Nobody thinks that. This is a calculated effort to get out the vote by whipping up racial fears.
But you don't just throw out the word racist.
No, you don't. It's
you
really
shouldn't do that. I mean, it totally diminishes the meaning of the real word.
Well, it also makes people hate each other, and it makes them fearful, and it stokes people's paranoia, and it creates division between groups along ethnic lines. Identity politics is really dangerous. These people are playing with fire when they do this, but it works in elections. They're worried about the midterms, so they're telling women that Republicans hate them on the basis of their sex, minority voters on the basis of their race, gay people on the basis of their sexuality. I mean, they're whipping up fear.
Well, it makes sense, right? They want to keep those margins that they crushed in the last election cycle. They want to have those margins with minority voters. They want to have those margins with minorities, and they want to have those margins with gay voters. So you're going to see that more in 2014. Something you also see in 2014, women